On January 26, 2020, the world lost an icon as Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others tragically lost their lives in a fatal helicopter crash in Calabasas, California. You often hear the words, more than a basketball player. Kobe defined that in every sense.
Teaching the next generation about achieving greatness is really what it's all about.
Yes, he was a 5-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, and global superstar on the court. But the real tragedy is that his life was just getting started at 41. He was an astute businessman, even won an Academy Award for his short film, Dear Basketball. But most importantly, the thing he cared about the most was his family and being a girl dad.
Our daughters, Natalia, Gianna, and Bianca, you guys know that you work hard enough, dreams come true.
The same passion Kobe gave to his professional career, he poured into teaching the next generation, and particularly Gianna. She emulated his moves, the biting of the jersey. There was no place Kobe would rather be than watching her play basketball. And just over a year later, this unconscionable loss still doesn't seem real.
God knew they couldn't be on this earth without each other. May you both rest in peace and have fun in heaven until we meet again one day.
Now Kobe will enter the Basketball Hall of Fame posthumously as one of the most revered players of all time. And even though the great Kobe Bryant is no longer with us, the Mamba mentality will live forever.
The sports world will never forget the life of Kobe Bryant, who he was as a player and who he was as a dad. Kobe's competitive drive and passion for the game was also witnessed in the way he coached his daughter Gigi's basketball team, something the ultimate competitor Michael Jordan appreciates. MJ recently sharing some of their final text messages with each other. One sent to Jordan read, quote, "I'm sitting on the bench right now and we're blowing this team out 45-8. Jordan telling ESPN, quote, "I just love that text because it shows Kobe's competitive nature." Kobe's life and legacy continues to resonate with all of us. The late, great Kobe Bryant headlining the 2020 Hall of Fame class. The enshrinement ceremony taking place Saturday night at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Kobe's wife, Vanessa Bryant, who was joined on stage by presenter Michael Jordan, delivering an emotional and heartfelt speech in honor of her late husband.
If my husband were here tonight, he would have a long list of people to thank that helped inspire him and equip him to be in the Hall of Fame. Family, friends, mentors, the Lakers, teammates, muses, and opponents. This is one of the many hard parts about not having him here. At the risk of leaving anyone out, I can only say thank you. Kobe's personal stats speak for themselves. Kobe was on a different level. He never took shortcuts when it came to basketball. He gave this game his all. Kobe played through injury after injury. People don't know this, but one of the reasons my husband played through injuries and pain was because he said he remembered being a little kid, sitting in the nosebleeds with his dad to watch his favorite player play. He could recall the car ride, the combos, and the excitement of being lucky enough to have a seat in the arena. Kobe didn't want to disappoint his fans, especially the ones in the 300 sections that saved up to watch him play, the kids with the same excitement he once had. Congratulations, baby. All of your hard work and sacrifices paid off. You once told me, if you're going to bet on someone, bet on yourself. I'm glad you bet on yourself, you overachiever. You did it. You're in the Hall of Fame now. You're a true champ. You're not just an MVP. You're an all-time great. I'm so proud of you. I love you forever and always. Kobe Bean Bryant.
Certainly an emotional speech there delivered by Vanessa Bryant, the poise she showed in that moment. Here's a look at a few of Kobe Bryant's accolades: 5 NBA titles, 4th most career points in NBA history, 2nd most points in a single game in NBA history at 81, trailing only Wilt Chamberlain. And you remember that he suffered an Achilles tendon injury. He came back from that injury, capped off his career with a 60-point performance, the most by a player in a final game in NBA history. And from Let's welcome in former NBA Coach of the Year Avery Johnson and CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Reiter. Avery, start with you. Give us your perspective. What was that like watching Kobe's Hall of Fame induction?
Oh, it was amazing. I thought Vanessa did an incredible job. His kids, Michael Jordan, obviously. But she was just so composed. She showed the emotions at the right time. She shared, the stories of when he played, with a broken nose and popped his finger back in and, broken hand. So he had to learn how to play with his left hand. A lot of those stories, which we knew, and took us behind the scenes of what really made him arguably one of the all-time greats of any sport. This wasn't just a celebration of basketball. This was a celebration of achievers, high achievers that could have excelled in any sport or any walk of life. And Kobe did it on the court, off the court, girl dad, movies. He just did it all. And this was an incredible, emotional celebration that I will remember forever.
Yeah, Coach, I could not agree more. We've seen so many of these ceremonies. They're all special. But to me, I think this one resonates as deeply, as emotionally, as impressively as any of the Hall of Fame inductions. And Kobe being Bryant's honor and the ceremony geared toward him, I think was the most powerful. I think the hardest thing to do and the most impressive thing to do in these moments, and his wife, his widow, did that, Vanessa did that, is to encapsulate the greatness of the player and for all the reasons they're a Hall of Famer, and to humanize them in the same manner. And I found myself, again, the same feelings, guys, I felt going back more than a year when we found out that Kobe had passed, and over the last year, and more than that, as we've had these different markers of the fact that he's gone and what he meant to the game, feeling emotional, feeling in awe of the fact that as a reporter I got to be around him a little bit, and just understanding, again, what we lost and the magnitude of the person, the player, all of that encapsulated in a speech from someone who's clearly still mourning the loss of her husband and her best friend. It was incredibly powerful.
Bill, well said. And you're in LA. How would you describe the legacy that Kobe leaves behind in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I mean, I literally just got goosebumps thinking about it. Every cliche, I could give you, it would sound like it's on the nose. It's not. The guy just is one of the guiding spirits of Los Angeles, California. There is nowhere you can go. You just can't go anywhere in the city and there not be a mural or a memory on the wall. Or now that we're sort of back to this, right? We're outside and even in some restaurants, people talking about Kobe Bryant. You would think he was one of the founding fathers of this city in a sense, in the modern sense. He was. I mean, he took to L.A. He was a winner. He was cutthroat. He achieved everything that he wanted to. He was multifaceted, and yet there was this depth to him, this reality to Kobe Bryant that went beyond the cliche of Hollywood or just some basketball player. And this is I've lived in a lot of places, guys. Lived in Chicago, lived in Miami, whatever. Lived everywhere, right? Covering sports. I have never seen a city not just celebrate but connect with emotionally a player the way that community does Kobe Bryant.
Avery, you coached against Kobe and the Lakers, and he had several amazing games in his career, including a game in 2005 when he had 62 points through 3 quarters against your Mavericks. What do you remember about that game?
Well, I remember that we couldn't stop Kobe Bryant. It was a situation that whatever defense that we tried, it could have been a man-to-man, zone, trap. He just wasn't having it that night. He was just on another level. His mid-range game, three-point game, free throws. He was just unstoppable. We tried to attack him when he was on the defensive end, and just his will to win. His will to win was greater than any 5 players that we could put on the floor. It was greater than any defense that I could draw up to try to slow him down. This guy just had the will to win. And his will didn't start on the court. He has been legendary. I mean, legendary with his practice habits, his weight training. He always wanted to, be on the floor early in the morning before any of his opponents woke up in the morning. during the Olympics, he was always the first guy in the gym listening to some of the athletic trainers, lifting weights. So what he did on the floor was a microcosm of his practice habits, his preparations, his will to win, his drive, and his tenacity.
He was one of the all-time greats. Bill, you were at Kobe's final game when he scored 60 against the Jazz in 2016. It was an incredible game to watch. It was the most by a player in his final game in NBA history. What was that like being there for Kobe's farewell game?
Yeah, it was incredible. And today's ceremony sort of reinforced and reminded me, it seems normal, right? Looking back, 5 years ago, that's the game you'd go to. But the reality was that final game of the season, for all of us that travel and cover the NBA, that game was in LA, and the Warriors were trying to win their 73rd game and set the record, which obviously they did. And so there was this conversation among all the writers, local and national, who cover the NBA. Where you're going to go, we're not really sure. And I'll never forget, I decided to go last minute, just something, the quiet gravitational pull of Kobe Bryant's career and greatness. I show up at Staples, and literally, guys, every single NBA writer, every single person I know had somehow chosen that game, a game that really shouldn't have mattered. No one anticipated the 60 points. The Lakers weren't very good. It was the Warriors making history, but that's what that game was about. And I've never been into a game. I've never seen a game on television, let alone been in person, where a single finale, right, a single moment somehow so powerfully captured the depth and the breadth and the nuances of one of the most incredible careers in the history of a sport, from the 60 points to the looks on the faces of the fans to the way that entire Staples Center came to life, and how Kobe Bryant afterwards in this huge part of Staples Center where they only do press conferences that I've been to at the All-Star Game, the NBA Finals, had hundreds of reporters, and he held court, and his personality, his charm, his ambition, his humor, his intellect, all that stuff came to the forefront. And so in watching the ceremony today, it struck me, I was going to say how lucky all of us reporters were to be at Kobe's last game, but how somehow in the universe that dude willed every NBA writer in the country to go see him and not a historic Warriors team through the sheer power of who he was. And maybe subconsciously we understood what it would mean to be at his final game.
What an incredible performance that was. And Avery, I can't wait to tell my kids about Kobe and show them videos when they're old enough to understand about how great of a player he was. I count myself certainly fortunate having been able to watch him during his playing days. Avery, what do you hope that people remember about Kobe?
Well, I hope they remember the totality of Kobe Bryant. I hope they remember his awesome achievements on the court, winning championships, scoring titles, perennial all-star. I hope they remember what an unbelievable girl dad that he was, husband, father, obviously. I hope that they remember how he pivoted into the sports drink industry, and his relationship with this body armor, where he invested, and now that's worth close to $100 million, that investment. I hope they remember how he gave back to the community. I hope they remember how he transitioned to Hollywood. Just the whole totality of who Kobe Bryant was, a guy that can speak multiple languages and spent time in Italy. And so I just hope Kobe doesn't ever get boxed in to one box or square, but that he can fly and spread his wings, and he can be successful on multiple platforms.
I think that is so smart and so on point, because obviously with his passing, he will not be around the next generation of fans to be an ambassador for who he was. And for most players, that would be about being an ambassador, right? Reminding people with your presence who you were as a player. But Coach is right. And Kobe Bryant was a Renaissance man, an actual Renaissance man. Business, communications, basketball, Hollywood, media, language, and the sheer depth of who he was, the greatness of Kobe Bryant, I certainly wasn't. I thought I knew, but I didn't really grasp it maybe until that Academy Award, until you started to interact with him a little bit after his playing career, when you realize, oh my God, this dude is one of the 10 best basketball players of all time, and might be one of the 10 most creative people you've ever been around of all time, and might be one of the most 10 intense people in business of all time. So I'm with Coach. I hope, because we won't be able to see those achievements the way we did his basketball achievements, people remember and realize this was a uniquely gifted human being in the vein of, a Benjamin Franklin or other people through history, really, who achieved and was able to achieve things at a high level again and again and again that most of us can't do even in a single field.
Kobe continues to inspire thousands of kids around the world. And Kobe, part of a 9-person Hall of Fame class that includes his contemporaries, Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett. They all retired in 2016. And check this out. Kobe, Duncan, and Garnett were selected to a combined 48 All-Star games, by far the most by any trio to retire at the end of the same season. Those 3 players combined to win 11 NBA titles. And NBA fans had the luxury of seeing Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan square off in 6 different playoff series throughout their careers, with Kobe's Lakers winning 4 of those matchups. And like Kobe, Duncan played his entire career with one team, and also like Kobe, the Spurs big man was a 5-time NBA champion. Duncan won a title with the San Antonio Spurs in 3 different decades. He thanked all of his Spurs teammates, including David Robinson, and saved one big thank you for last.
Finally. I don't want to talk about him. He's going to get mad at me if I talk about him. Sorry, Pop. Coach Pop. He's going to be mad at me, but the standard you set, you showed up after I got drafted. You came to my island. We sat with my friends, my family. You talked with my dad. I thought that was normal. It's not. You're an exceptional person. Thank you for teaching me about basketball, but even beyond that, teach me that's not all about basketball. It's about what's happening in the world, about your family, just for everything. Thank you for being the amazing human being that you are.
Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich won 5 NBA titles together. Kevin Garnett, a.k.a. the Big Ticket, drafted out of high school by the Timberwolves in 1995. He was the league MVP in 2004, yet his biggest moment came in Boston, leading the Celtics to the 2008 NBA title when they beat Kobe and the Lakers. KG shouted one of the all-time great lines, "Anything is possible." Garnett earned Defensive Player of the Year that season, becoming just one of 5 players to win both the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in his career. Here's Garnett voicing his gratitude to the fans.
For all the fans that ever cheered for me, booed me, it's all good with me. I appreciate you loving the sport, loving sports. It's because of the fans is that we athletes are immortalized, so thank you. My final remarks are, I played the game. It's hard. Played the game with the passion. I wanted to say, Timmy, thank you, man. Congratulations to you and Kobe. Seriously, there was nothing epic of when we battled. I look forward to all the battles, seriously. And I thank you for taking me to another level. You and Rasheed, I appreciate you. It's an honor to go in the hall with you, bro. You and Kobe.
Awesome stuff there. Back here with Avery Johnson and Bill Reiter. And Avery, you were a teammate of Tim Duncan's, part of that 1999 championship team. He gave you a shout out during his speech, helping him develop as a player. What did that mean to you, hearing him say that?
It was so special, guys. I'm telling you, I was in tears. I probably got 50 text messages. I don't know if some people thought I was dead or what, but I'm still around. But it's just special to spend time, with Tim on the court, off the court. He was such a fundamentally sound player, passionate player. Now, he didn't show it like Kevin Garnett, but he was passionate. He would destroy you in practice, during the games, and it would just be like a silent assassin. He would, bank shots, and I would also like to give a big shout out to David Robinson, because David Robinson basically gave Tim Duncan the keys to the car to the team and said, hey, you're the best player. We're going to follow your lead. You take us to the promised land. And I just had so many great times with Tim, and the dinners after games and learning about his upbringing. And I was just so honored that he thought enough about me to mention me in his Hall of Fame speech, because every day wasn't a great day. I was the leader of the team, and sometimes it was tough love. But we gave it, we took it. Obviously, Pop was the orchestrator of it all, and he really saved the best for last, which was Coach Popovich. So what a phenomenal guy, and now he's a all-around dad like Kobe was before he passed away. And I was just really honored that he thought enough to not only shout me out, but a lot of the guys that really had an impact on his life on and off the court.
Yeah, that was pretty cool indeed. And Bill, how important was the Hall of Famer David Robinson to the development of Tim Duncan?
Well, I mean, Coach just said it. I mean, it was critical in the sense of the example David Robinson set. But you think about David Robinson and his greatness and his skills in his own career, and what Avery just said is what everybody talked about, including people in that Spurs organization, that early on, the keys to the kingdom, right? The idea, really the first handover, because it happened a little bit down the line. Tony Parker had to be the best player on one of those championship teams. Kawhi Leonard, before he left, had to be the best player on one of those championship teams. But it was David Robinson who really created that culture and that idea that you may have been here less time. I may be the veteran, but you're the critical guy, and we're going to turn that over to you. And Avery, you could talk about this as well, but it just epitomizes what Tim Duncan talked about in that speech, which is, and I know we don't celebrate it as much because the Spurs haven't been the same team since Kawhi left, but the culture of that organization, the selflessness of that organization, the fact that it really was about winning before ego or anything else, that was epitomized in how David Robinson and his handling of Tim Duncan coming in handled that situation. As Coach just said, gave him the keys of the kingdom very, very early in that young man's career.
Avery, what was it like playing with Tim Duncan, and when did you know he was going to be a Hall of Famer?
I knew he was going to be a Hall of Famer the first training camp practice, where he basically, I don't even want to say the word, but he got the best of David Robinson, who was a former NBA MVP a couple of years earlier, and it wasn't even close. I was on David's team. I was upset, and we went back that night after training camp. We had dinner. We stayed up late at night. We told David, you got to do something about this. You know, Tim Duncan got the best of you in the worst way, and we're expecting more from you tomorrow in practice. When tomorrow came, Tim Duncan doubled down and got the best of the big fella again. And we said, this kid is special. He's a future all-star, him finals MVP, multiple NBA champion, and one day could very well end up in the Hall of Fame. So we saw this 20 years ago before the rest of the world could find out, because he had a little bit of David, Hakeem, the toughness of Patrick Ewing, the power of Shaq, the finesse of Jack Sikma. He had a little bit of everybody, and I'm not exaggerating.
Great story there. I love that. And going back to that 99 championship team, Avery and the Spurs beat Kevin Garnett and the Timberwolves in the first round of the playoffs en route to the title. Avery, what comes to mind when you hear the name Kevin Garnett?
Wow, toughness, just toughness. You know, he is a Chicago kid that came straight out of high school. He bet on himself, and every single night he wanted to prove that he was the toughest guy on the floor, that you weren't going to intimidate him. He was going to play with unbelievable tenacity. And Kevin Garnett, in a weird way, always thought that he wasn't the best player on the floor, that he always played like he had something to prove. And that was critical in his success. I like, you know, he played both ends of the floor, offense, defense. These are also guys that didn't like to take games off, you know. Vanessa talked about it, about Kobe Bryant. It was also Kevin Garnett. This guy wanted to play every night. You know, he wanted to give the fans their money's worth. So played above the rim. You know, he developed a really unbelievable mid-range jump shot, but he just was an intimidator. He was tough. He brought it every single night. And boy, when you drove down the lane and you met him at the rim, you best be prepared, because you either gonna get your shot blocked, a hard foul, or if you get him one time, he was gonna let you know you weren't gonna get him the second time. So just an unbelievable competitor that brought it every night.
Yeah, guys, we've talked, and I think rightfully so. This might be the most impressive talent-wise group in the history of the Hall of Fame, in the history of inductions. It also might be the toughest group. I mean, you talk about KG, right? When I think about that dude, it's his, as Coach has said, his toughness and how much he loved and respected the game. And I think it's interesting, he hit on that, thanking people that booed him as much as people that cheered for him, praising people that he went up against, like Tim Duncan, as much as teammates. I mean, KG epitomizes this class in a very unique and interesting way. And in different ways, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, you talk about guys that were wildly intense, different personalities, but tough in the ultimate sense of the word, in the basketball sense of the word. And KG certainly epitomized that. And I can just tell you, being around him a little bit, right, having covered some of those teams, I mean, you talk about a class act who was absolutely in love with basketball. And you could just tell every moment he was out there, it was what he wanted to do. And he wanted to battle, right? He wasn't savoring being in the limelight. He wanted to go to battle. And I thought his speech was one of those really cool moments. Really, the entire ceremony was so incredible in how authentic it was of the people who were inducted, how much he talked about and celebrated his love for the game and that intensity that drove him.
Kevin Garnett, one of the best all time, and don't forget about his Hall of Fame performance in the movie Uncut Gems. Don't forget about that. He was awesome in that movie. He was actually the star of that movie, though Adam Sandler was in that movie. But nonetheless, he was awesome in Uncut Gems. Bill, Avery, thank you for your perspective and the heartfelt memories and stories. Appreciate it. Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, and Kevin Garnett headlining the 2020 Hall of Fame class.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.